Hey guys, what's up? I'm gonna do a new section today. It's gonna be the Royal Rumbles. I'm gonna start on the Royal Rumbles in chronological order. I'm gonna go from 1988 to now. It should be noted, it's kind of a disclaimer right off the bat that these reviews, some of what I'm about to say, the trivia and whatnot, they're online already because those were my reviews. So I can't plagiarize my own reviews. So if somebody finds my review online, my name is Brett Mix. If somebody finds Brett Mix's reviews and it's similar to what I'm saying, it's just a disclaimer. It's because it's the same person. However, I did rewatch these events, so I did that before coming to this video review, obviously, because I want things to be fresh in my mind. So we're gonna start with the WWF Royal Rumble 1988 special that was on the USA Network. This took place from the Cops Coliseum in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. It was not on pay-per-view, obviously, as just mentioned. This was a special event because it was a new concept. The NWA had their war games, and they even had an event, a pay-per-view called Bunko Stampede that took place the same night as the WWF Royal Rumble 1988. So Vince thought, if we put a special attraction on free cable, that might beat out the NWA pay-per-view buy rate. And back then in the late 80s, the war was a lot closer than people think. So they only think of the Monday Night Wars in the late 90s. But in the late 80s, these two promoters, they went head to head. And Vince McMahon is used to competition before he raided out all the other territories. During this event, the contract signing took place. Hogan and Andre, and they had the $1 Million Man with them. They were trying to set up a WrestleMania 3 rematch that would later happen on Saturday night's main event on February the 5th, 1988. That's where the Hebner screw job happened and the title became Andre's for 24 hours until the $1 Million Man bought it, and then it was stripped from him, and then we had the WrestleMania 4 tournament. So that's just kind of how that happened. I'm sure you all know, but that's just a recap. Hogan also cut a pretty interesting, rageful promo later in the night after this contract signing. I'm not going to review the contract signing or the Dino Bravo bench press, but I just thought I'd mention them in the trivia and facts here first. So Dino Bravo tried to lift 705 pounds, and he did with Jesse Ventura's help. So it was more of a let's get over you as a tough man heel, but it wasted 15 minutes of the pay per view. The Rumble match itself had only 20 members, as opposed to the usual 30, and then 2011 and 2012. No, 2011 had 40, but every other Rumble had 30 except for this one in 2011, which had just previously mentioned had 40. There was just 20 guys in this one. Tito Santana and Bret Hart were the first two. And it's interesting because Tito Santana was also the first wrestler to begin WrestleMania with the Executioner back in 1985 at MSG. But in this night here in Hamilton, he finds himself with Bret to begin the first ever Royal Rumble. And Bret was also in the first ever Survivor Series match too. It was also the first Undertaker match. So Bret has his history. He also won the first ever pay-per-view style King of the Ring. So Bret's used to being in the beginnings as well. Hamilton, I just want to say quickly, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, for any Americans or British people watching, Australia, anywhere across the world. If you don't know where Hamilton is, it's a big city in Canada. I believe it's top 7 or 8 in population, but it's an hour from Toronto. So it's about an hour and a half, an hour from Toronto. So that's the general area of Hamilton. They want to put a hockey team in there, or a lot of us Canadians. I am Canadian. I live in BC, Canada. Are fighting for a new Canadian hockey team, and nonetheless, Hamilton's a big city, and they were pretty enthusiastic about this event, considering it's the first one. Not everybody knows that the fans are going to chant along with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but they ended up doing just that, and the event it looks way better when the crowd's into the Rumble match. And this is you really got to say this about the first one. What you notice every style of elimination they try, where they throw the wrestler in the corner and they hold onto their legs and they make sure they're all like upside down vertical. The fans react to that. They didn't react to that in later Rumbles because no wrestler ever really got eliminated that way. But that was a huge thing in the first few early Rumbles I remember. We'll go along with that when I get to the Rumble match, but that was one of the major things I remembered from this Rumble. Um, the Royal Rumble, as you know, still has gone on to this day. Pat Patterson was the one who invented the Rumble match, and you all know the rules. Vince McMahon and Jesse the Body Ventura did commentary. Now, it's interesting because the Rumble match did not headline this pay per view, and neither did a championship match. It was actually a tag team match, 2 out of 3 falls, but we'll get there. The opener was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Ravishing Rick Rude, and these two guys work so well together in later years in WCW. But tonight, on the first opening match of the Royal Rumble from Hamilton, their match was a lot differently paced. The first half, you could say, it was leading to that classic territory of their later WCW matches, but because the first half was just Rude's agility versus Steamboat's, or I should say Steamboat's agility and work rate versus Rude's. Oh man, what's the word? Agility versus the stamina. I believe I wanted to say of both men. You could tell Rude is just ripped, but Rick Rude's body language. His body language was perfect. Every smirk, every flex, everything he did had meaning, and the crowd loved to hate him, and the crowd loved to cheer Ricky Steamboat. What I meant by perfect chemistry is nobody. You could argue nobody plays a face like Steamboat. Whoever hated Steamboat? No one, and no one could play a better heel in ways than Rick Rude. So putting them against each other and having that crowd hot as that's their opener, smart move. The first half was just fast paced. Steamboat worked on Rude's left arm a lot of the match. Rude came back with a lot of chin locks, headlocks. Really tried to slow the pace down because Steamboat's like that quicker style. And this is just 10 months removed after Steamboat's classic with Savage at WrestleMania 3. So Steamboat's in really good condition, and this is a year before his triple crown, you could say, matches with Ric Flair in '89, all those 5-star matches. So Steamboat's in the midst of his prime here. And the Ravishing Rick Rude, obviously, in great shape. Like I say, there's a lot of great storytelling in this match. The first half was way better than the second half. In the second half, Rude got Steamboat to the ground, and what he did is he just power bombed him, basically spine first into the barricade, and then he got him back in the ring and sent him to the ropes, and then he put a knee right in the abdomen, and it's clear that he was working on his back and his abdomen and his core area. And he would do this and later on in the match, he would just sit on his back while he did the chin locks, camel clutch. He just did that over and over to wear down Steamboat, and that's where the fans kind of fell asleep during the second half. It should have been a lot shorter than it was. Uh, you look at a guy like Rude and you think this is where Val Venus kind of picked up his style of being a heel. Anyways, during the end, what ended up happening is the ref got caught up in the middle. Steamboat went to go hit Rude with a aerial move, and Rude pushed the referee in front. And Steamboat hit the referee. Then what happened was Rude grabbed Steamboat and he did one of those abdominal stretches with his neck over the shoulder, and that applying way more pressure to the lower back. So some good psychology, good story going during the match. But the second half just really, really dragged on. And because of that, it loses points overall. So anyways, that I don't have to keep holding my back. You get the idea about the submission hold by Rick Rude. The ref called for the bell. He said, "That's it." And the fans were a little confused, as was commentary. But it ended up being a disqualification. But both styles help this opener. If you can get through the minute or two of his camel clutch or chin locks, you can get through this match a lot better. I would say I used to rate it on the website I used to write for. I put 3.5 stars. As a rewatch, I give it 3 stars. So that's what I'm at right now. I reviewed this about 12 years ago, and now I'm taking a half a star off. So I'm a little bit more strict now than I was back then. So 3 stars for that opener. We had obviously the Dino Bravo weightlifting. I already said that I'm not going to go over that because I did that at the beginning trivia. It wasn't too much trivia with this event, but the trivia will be a lot more thorough in later Rumble pay-per-view events. Uh, so what happened here is we had the Jumping Ball Angels, Norio Tatino, and Itsuki Yamazaki versus the Glamour Girls, Judy Martin and Lalani Kai, with Jimmy Hart in a 2 to 3 falls match for the WWF Women's Tag Team Championship. Yes, the historic Women's Tag Team Championship, the one we all know about, and one that is lusted after by every woman in the company. Obviously, that's sarcasm. The women tag team titles back in these days were not defended like they were, say, today. I'm not even sure how good they defend them today, but nonetheless, here we go. It was a great match, and one thing that sticks out is the fact that Vince McMahon called them the Red Angel or the Pink Angel, and Jesse goes, "Well, that's original." I just love Jesse Ventura's side commentary to McMahon's. It is just absolutely perfect. The chemistry they have. I'm gonna say this: Bobby the Brain Heenan was one of the funniest managers, funniest commentators, and best commentators. But Jesse Ventura is ahead of him as far for commentary, not as a character or funny or not funnier, and not more of a personality. But Ventura as a commentator was the greatest color commentator in the history of professional wrestling. The greatest. The King during the Attitude Era was hilarious. Bobby Heenan was hilarious. Jesse Ventura could be funny and serious, and he said the right things at the right time, called Gorilla Monsoon and Vince on their bullshit, and they had no comeback because Ventura was such a good heel, and he came from an honest point of view most of the time. Anyways, so he corrected McMahon and went, "Well, that's original." Well, I can't do his voice, but he said, "That's original, Vince." When Vince called one of the angels, one of the jumping ball angels, Red Angel, because he couldn't know the name. He didn't know the name, I should say. He didn't want to take the time and know the name. Anyway, this 2 out of 3 bell match ended 2 falls to 1. It was Tatiano pitting Martin after a double missile dropkick at 15:21. So again, it was fun throughout, but the crowd was into it, and it was just a solid match overall. I gave it 3 stars and 1/4, and I'm going to stick with that. So far, we have 3 stars and 3 star and 1/4 match here in the Rumble, and now it's time for the first ever Royal Rumble match that I'll be reviewing: the 1988 20-man Rumble match on TV, not on pay-per-view in Canada, not USA. They explain the rules a little bit longer after this because it's the first one. And as I said earlier in the trivia, Bret and Tito Santana are already in the ring, and the Fink is announcing them. And when Bret Hart is held from Canada, obviously that gets a bit of a pop. We're in Canada, even though he's from Western Canada, and this is Eastern Canada, where Hamilton is. Nonetheless, Canada's Canada. We love each other all the way across. I'm far west Canada, BC, because that's to the side of Alberta where the Hitman's from. So obviously I'm a little bit biased. That's the point I'm making with where I live. I love the Hitman and I love the Hearts. As many of you do too, I'm sure. I'm not going to review every single person that comes out, but just gonna highlight you know what? Why don't we do that? I like thinking on the fly. Why don't we say a little bit about each person in order? I think that's the way it would be best received on here because that's the way I wrote it. I'm not going to read everything I wrote, but I think that's the better way of doing this. Bret began to work on Santana in the corner of the ring, and these two had good chemistry. Bret hitting a huge inverted atomic drop on Santana, who Jesse calls Chico. Then the first person to ever enter a Royal Rumble match was the natural, Butch Reed. I just want to cut myself off. If this seems like a tedious task, if this seems like, oh, I don't want to hear every single person that comes out, just give it a chance and maybe you'll like the style. So, anyways, and maybe I'll surprise myself and I like the style too. If it doesn't flow well here, we'll get rid of it for the future reviews. Tito Santana fought back against Brett Pitt, the first person ever to come in into a Rumble match was the Natural Butch Reed. Him and Santana went at it, and McMahon, reminded us on commentary there are no friends in this match. Tito fought back. He slammed Brett down, and then he slammed Butch Reed down. So the Canadian hero kind of thing is going on with the 1-on-2 because Brett's the only face in the Rumble. But then all of a sudden, and it's Brett's partner, Jim Neidhart. So the Hart Foundation's in there, and that's getting a big pop. And then all of a sudden, Jake the Snake Roberts came into the ring, and Jake, there's a big historic moment here because Roberts threw out Butch Reed, and he is the first elimination in Rumble history. Jake the Snake threw out the Natural Butch Reed when he came in, so that's the first Rumble elimination ever. Jake on Butch Reed. Harley Race was next into the ring while the Hart Foundation kept working on Tito Santana and Jake. Then one of the Killer Bees runs out, jumping Jim Ronzell, and what's surprising is the pop he got. And now it's 3-on-3, as Ventura was mentioning in the heel face scenario. 7 of the 20 men had entered after Butch Reed was eliminated by Jake, and then Sam Houston came out as the next entrant. The Hart Foundation seemed to dominate. 6 men remained now inside the ring, and the 9th entrant came out, and it was Dangerous Danny Davis, who got a lot of heel heat. I can always remember when Danny Davis came to the ring. His heel heat was extraordinary. Boris the Russian came out as the 10th entrant. The Rock comes out at number 11. No, not a teenage Dwayne Johnson. He'd have been in school. I'm talking about The Rock Don Morocco. He walked out with Nikolai Volkov, and Volkov, who went in the ring, was thrown out. The legal Morocco stayed in, then Boris threw out of the ring. The next entrance was Volkov, now legal. He was in before he was legal. And then Don Morocco and Brett eliminated Harley Race to allow pop. Morocco was left to hold off both members of the Hart Foundation until Hacksaw Jim Duggan's entrance comes out. For his entrance, I should say. Duggan got a lot of ovation in Hamilton and brawled with all the guys left in the ring. There were 8 men left in the ring as the fans asked for a DDT from Jake to Duggan. The outlaw Ron Bass came out and they went to work on Don Morocco. Jumping Jim Ronzell eliminated Jake the Snake, coming off with a shoulder block to the anvil. Just as one Killer Bee was eliminated, the other came out, who picked on Bret Hart, who had been in the ring the longest. Just reading this again is really funny to see how Ventura is picking on McMahon during the commentary of this match. Hillbilly Jim, Dino Bravo, and the Ultimate Warrior, number 18. But he wasn't insanely as over as he became, but he was there. Not sure where Randy Savage was during this event. It's a really ominous omission that I've never remembered. Anyway, the one-man gang, and then 20th, the Junkyard Dog. So the Royal Rumble 88 is now down to these men. The Junkyard Dog, the Outlaw, Ron Bass, Dangerous Danny Davis, the Ultimate Warrior, Nikolai Volkov, Hillbilly Jim, Don Morocco, Dino Bravo, and the one-man gang. The final 4 were Hacksaw, Bravo, the gang, and Morocco. One-man gang crushed Hacksaw in the corner, and then Don Morocco tried to keep away from him and Bravo. But then Don Morocco attacked Bravo. Morocco kicked Frenchie Martin off the apron, and Bravo stomped on him while Morocco was on the canvas. Bravo then held Morocco up, and he got clotheslined by the one-man gang, who then helped eliminate him with a simple clothesline, and Morocco fell out of the ring slowly. 2-on-1 now for the final 3 as Duggan attacked and was beaten up by Dino Bravo and the one-man gang. They beat him with a bunch of blows. The one-man gang went to clothesline Jim Duggan, but he ducks and Bravo is eliminated with a clothesline. The gang then is attacked by Hacksaw as the fans cheer on one-man gang. Fans cheer on Hacksaw, but one-man gang came off the side of the ropes with a huge forearm to the Jim Duggan. gang charged towards Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and the one-man gang would stumble over the top rope to end the first ever Royal Rumble. A very intelligent, believable, unique elimination there for Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and he wins the first ever Royal Rumble at 33:02 as Hacksaw threw out the one-man gang to end it. Was this Rumble great? No, it wasn't bad either, though, and it should be noted that it's historic for being the first one, and usually for the first of things, it's not always the greatest, outside maybe a ladder match in Hell in a Cell. Those firsts, and Money in the Bank, those firsts are pretty good. Elimination Chamber, okay, maybe it is first, but it has to be a gimmick match for the first to be great. But the Royal Rumble, this is a new style, so uh, it definitely can be left alone as one of the greatest things to happen. I mean, wrestling fans that don't even watch wrestling want to watch the Royal Rumble. It's one of the most exciting hours in wrestling for a year. So I think everybody loves that concept. And I love when Jesse Ventura on commentary went, "It's him of all the guys. It's him." About Hacksaw winning. Anyways, I gave that 2.75 stars. We'll keep that. Now we're on to the main event. The Islanders, Haku and Tama, versus the Young Stallions, Paul Roma and Jim Powers, in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Wow. Does that make you ever excited for the main event of the Rumble? Pay-per-view. Well, not a pay-per-view event, I should say. Don't ask me why it wasn't a standard tag match, but here we go. It's 2 out of 3 falls. I should mention that this one went to the second fall quite early. Well, 7 minutes in. Paul Roma was counted out at 7 minutes to give the first fall to the Islanders. The second fall actually began after Ted DiBiase cut a promo during the recess or the intermission of this match. After the fall, they used to take a bit of an intermission, a bit of a recess, 5-10 minutes, something like that. So Ted DiBiase cut a promo during the fact that after the Islanders made it 1-0. And then it looks like just a back and forth seesaw match. And in the end, Roma to submit him with a single leg Boston Crab at 14 minutes. So Haku forced Paul Roma to submit with a single leg Boston Crab at 14 minutes. So the Islanders won 2-0. Approximately 7 minutes for each fall. Decent storytelling with some good moves by the Islanders, but they pretty much dominated the match, and it was certainly nothing special and should not have closed the show. Had it not closed the show, I think this match would be looked at a little bit better. But it closed the show, and therefore it's 2.5 stars. So my final rating for the 1988 Royal Rumble, I had 7 out of 10 before. When I wrote this 12 years ago, I'm going to change that. I'm going to make it 5.5 out of 10. So that's a 1.5, or that's a 2.5 drop. So 1.5. I'm just waking up. That's a 1.5 drop. So 5.5 out of 10. You have to go down from 7 to 6 to 5.5. 1.5 drop. This show, while only having 4 matches, had the first Royal Rumble match, and it was quite good due to that concept. There's a reason why this is one of the most exciting hours of any year for a wrestling fan. Anyway, it's a decent outing the first time out. I got 10 comments on this review 12 years ago. People said that they just watched the Rumble match for the first time and they liked it. People generally didn't disagree too much with my ratings, but they did concur that the Rude Steamboat opener was a little bit slow, a little bit too slow for our liking. But anyway, that's the 1988 Royal Rumble from Hamilton, Ontario. Hacksaw Jim Duggan wins. Some important matches, some non-important matches. Opener that had great start, great chemistry, but a little bit of a slower ending. And not much else other than that. We'll get to dive deeper into the later Rumbles on pay-per-view, so please join me for those, because I'm just getting started with these review things. I'll get a lot more sharp as they go along. It's my first pay-per-view review I've ever done on YouTube, if you can't tell. So please just bear with me if I'm not the greatest right now. I'm gonna try and get there. don't have the mic or the fancy equipment, but I have the wrestling knowledge and I love to go over the shit with you guys. So subscribe and like if you haven't not yet and help me get this thing going. Thanks, guys. On to Rumble 89 pretty soon. And we'll go from there.